Namaste, and welcome to our Friday Puja and Satsang here at Tridevi Chamunda Mandir in Denver, Colorado, and I am Yamajit. So this being the last Friday of the month, it's time for the 7th installment of our Matrika Goddess series, the Little Mother Goddess series. And tonight, the 7th, is Ma Chamunda, for which this temple is named. So we'll be doing a little presentation on the goddess Chamunda, and we're especially going to be emphasizing 3 of her aspects for which this temple, Tridevi, is named. So for those of you who might be watching a recording of this broadcast, after reading my upcoming book, Kali Meditation, Book 3. The Satsang tonight will give you a further introduction as to the 3 aspects of Ma Kali, worshipped in Kathmandu, plus a 4th, Ma Kali, who's really a sum of the 3. And then tonight you'll also see a demonstration of the formal Puja procedure that is in the back of that book. So my original plan was to have tonight's event outside in my outdoor temple. However, the original plan was a fire puja, and we've been having some wildfires up in the mountains. The air has been rather smoky. I don't really want to contribute to that. And also we've had, after a long, hot, dry spell, some rain helping to settle things and cool things. But it was a little too wet and sloppy outside to set up out there, especially with electronic equipment. So we're doing the puja tonight in our large puja room, which also serves as a classroom. For those of you tuning in, I invite you to say hello using the chat function at the bottom of the screen. And you can also find a video of tonight's PowerPoint also on YouTube. So I'm going to be going through that, making some additions to it, some commentaries, and then we'll go into our puja. So Ma Chamunda, the 7th of the Matrika goddesses. And Chamunda means slayer of passion and anger. And if you read chapter 7 of this scripture, the Chandipat, also known as the Devi Mahatmya, there's a story as to how Kali received this name. She's Lord Shiva's consort, as all forms of Kali are. However, for Chamunda, she is also the consort of Lord Yama, and Yama is the old Vedic god of death. In Nepal, Yama and Shiva's wrathful aspect, Bhairava, are really one and the same. And so really when we talk about Yama, he's really the personification, and here's a Tibetan image of Yama. He's really the personification of Shiva's aspect as destroyer. And what we're really looking at is destruction followed by renewal. Nothing is really truly destroyed. However, its form is changed. Things undergo transformation over time. She's a loving mother, actually, despite what some would regard as a fearful appearance. She's a personification of Ma Devi in all of her forms. She's a goddess of time, of death, but death which is then followed by rebirth. And Chamunda is another name also for Ma Durga, the reliever of difficulties, and especially Ma Durga, like this little Nepali piece, in her victorious form. Sometimes in this aspect, she is shown riding an owl, and I'll say a little bit more about the owl when we go into more of her symbolism. Another animal associated with Matrika Chamunda is also the jackal, and jackals are scavengers of both cremation grounds and battlefields. So think of scavengers picking the flesh off of bones, and that being related to our ability to let go of our desires or to let go of those things in our lives that are no longer useful. So Ma Chamunda, as I said, is one of the 7 or 8 Matrika goddesses. She's also one of the 64 yoginis, this very ancient collection of 64 aspects of the Divine Mother. Her earliest images appear during a period in Indian history called the Gupta period. This was a time from 800 to about 1300 in the Common Era. This was a time when agriculture was going very well. It was a time of great prosperity, and people had time and resources to build just these amazing stone temples during this period. And it's really during this time that we start to see these images of Ma Chamunda. And Chamunda is really the oldest form of Ma Kali. A lot of you are probably familiar with the more modern form of Kali, a younger woman, black or blue skin, standing upon Lord Shiva. That particular form of Kali, however, really didn't come into being till about the 17th century, when various sages started to have visions of her as a much younger woman and even a young girl. In Nepal, she exists as really the most popular form of Kali. So you see more of this form of Kali than any others. You still do see some traditional Indian images there as well. So of the 3 forms of Ma Chamunda Kali, the first is Sveta Kali, the white Kali, also known as Nardevi, which means the goddess of humanity. She's also known as Ahima, meaning mother or grandmother. And if we look at this image, you see that she's in a rather skeletal appearance. I'll say a little bit more about that. Her hands display 2 mudras, one that says fear not, and the other which is giving boons. She holds an elephant goad, a sword, a small shield, a coil of rope or noose, and the head of a demon. She's standing with her right foot on the back of Lord Shiva, and Shiva is in Bhujangasana, or cobra pose. And you can even see the little owl in her crown as well. Despite what some people would regard as a fearful appearance, we see this very gentle, kind of reassuring mother or grandmotherly expression upon her face. So Svetukali, the white Kali, and by the way, her temple in Kathmandu is my all-time favorite. Her white skin, really white being the color of bones, they refer to age, death, prior to rebirth, but also cleanliness, purity, and the wisdom of elders as well. Her sword, which she uses to slay our inner demons, and this is true of all aspects of Kali, represents cutting through illusions. Sometimes she's shown on a throne of 5 skulls, or she's holding a small staff with a skull on it called a kadbanga. And her skull throne, she also has 5 skulls in her crown. This represents mastery over fear, and specifically the fear of death or change. The hook-like elephant goad represents the divine guiding us in the right directions. Sometimes she also holds a small drum. This is the rhythm of vibration and creation. Her small shield, Kali's sword, is an invincible weapon. If you have Kali's sword, you can't lose. So her shield is not so much for protecting herself as it is for protecting her children, her devotees. And then the noose, which is also associated with Lord Yama, who I mentioned before. This represents the divine, its ability to draw us toward her. And it also represents the divine's ability to call us home when our time has come. The noose is also associated with binding ignorance. So the small shield, the drum, the skulls, those are really things you're going to see in all aspects of Chamunda, in addition to her emaciated body, pendulous breasts. She's the mother who truly gives all to her children. And this day and age, there's even a deeper meaning in terms of really the earth today that is given so much. This image and the other 2 that I'll show you, she's shown in a squatting position. This is a birth-giving position. Sometimes you see an arch of flames around her. This represents both transformation and enlightenment. When we see a nude aspect of Ma Kali, the universe and all things are her garb. So another form of Ma Chamunda, popular in the Kathmandu Valley, is Dakshin Kali, which means the Kali of the southern direction. And the Kali of the south is also, again, the direction of Lord Yama. So when we look at Dakshin Kali, of the 3 forms of Kali, she's the one that's considered really the most wrathful, really the wrathful of the wrathful. So she's standing with both feet on Lord Shiva. Svetukali had her right foot upon Lord Shiva, indicating that she's a benevolent form. There's the left-hand form, which is really the opposite. So this is the power of the divine to both give and to take away. And when we look at her weapons, she has a curved cutting blade called the Kartika. She's holding that same small shield and the head of a demon. This represents us letting go of our ego. And then we also see she has a necklace of skulls. Traditionally, a Kali necklace has 51 skulls. These represent the letters of the Sanskrit alphabet. So this symbol is associated with the power of mantra. She's in the same birth-giving position. And then we see this viscera, this intestine that's been torn from Lord Shiva's stomach, and she has it in her mouth. And I'll say a little bit more about that. Both forms of Kali that I've shown you so far, she has a skull cup called a Kapala, and this also represents the transformation of consciousness. So, to describe some things about Dakshin Kali's symbolism, so let's look at the most intense of her images, the consuming of Lord Shiva's viscera. When you look very closely to that statue, you see in the stomach a Kundalini energy spiral. The viscera is coming up from that, entering her mouth, and then in her abdominal area, she has that same spiral. So this really represents the blending, the union of male and female dynamic and receptive energies. The viscera going upwards also represents the Kundalini, the rising energy through the central channel of the spine that rises as part of meditation. And it's also associated with a devotee surrendering completely to the divine. So in the Shakta sect of Hinduism, this is the goddess form. In many aspects, many traditions within this tradition, the masculine figure, Shiva, is in a more receptive role, and the feminine, Kali, represents the more dynamic polarity. And this is usually shown the other way in other traditions. So when we meditate upon Kali, we're looking upon that active, that dynamic aspect, really in all women. And we're also honoring the feminine, the nurturing and receptive side that all men have. The severed head, which we've seen in the first two, represents again cutting away the ego and cutting away our illusions of duality. So the third aspect is Bhadrakali, and she's the giving Kali, the benevolent form of Kali. And in a Nepalese form of Bhadrakali, she's standing on two figures. One is Bhairava, also called Bhairab, who's the wrathful form of Shiva. And then the other is a feminine form, Kalaratri, a goddess whose name means night of darkness. And we see the same hand gesture of dispelling fear. She's holding, in this case, two demon heads. Here's this little drum that represents the passage of time. And the name Kali means both time and also darkness. And darkness in terms of the dark earth from which all things rise and to which all things will return. And also the infinite blackness of space. Here's her sword, the little shield on the back of this hand. And she's also holding a trident, which is also the weapon of Lord Shiva. And the trident represents three principles: creation, maintenance, and destruction, a cycle which we are all constantly going through in our lives. And also three forms of being and manifestation. And that would be the power of will, then the power of knowledge, and the power of action. These are called Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. Think of how an idea first manifests in your mind. Maybe you envision it. That would be Icha Shakti. And then you think about this idea, what's going to work with it, what isn't, just based on your own knowledge. That would be Jnana Shakti. And then the actual hands-on work to manifest that idea and the effects of the idea on this earth would be Kriya Shakti. And of our three forms of Kali, Sveta Kali is Icha Shakti. Bhadra Kali, who I'll go into more of her symbolism, is Jnana Shakti. And our cremation ground goddess, Dakshin Kali, she represents the power of Kriya Shakti. Back to Bhadra Kali. So, very benevolent goddess. She's associated with wealth and prosperity, good fortune. She, when you go to her temple in the eastern part of Kathmandu, her stone image is covered with red vermilion, and that red color represents sensuality, and on the other hand, purity and also auspiciousness. And red itself is the color of Shakti, that is divine force. Both Bhadra Kali and Dakshin Kali are shown with this curved blade called a Kartika. This is a sky burial blade. So this is a blade that would be used in traditional high Himalayan funerary rites, where the body is cut apart and given to scavengers. And this also represents the flaying away, just cutting away of these ego issues that are holding us back, keeping us from being who we're truly meant to be. So we've seen a couple of examples, both in Sveta Kali and in Bhadra Kali, where she's standing upon Lord Shiva, or either as the regular Shiva aspect or as wrathful Lord Bhairava aspect, also the goddess Kalaratri. They're both in Bhujangasana or Cobra pose. And this represents the enlivening of the devotee by divine Shakti, by divine power. So those are the three main aspects, but there's actually a fourth called Mahakali, and she's really the sum of all three principles. This is the Kali that in Nepal we tend to see sometimes in a very traditional Indian form, or she's in the form of a Chamunda form, but she has black or blue skin. And she's also the form of Kali, which is associated with festivals and specifically dance performances within these festivals. Sometimes we see, and I happen to have a painting here on the door of an orange-skinned Mahakali. And in this form, she would be a priest dressed in the form of this goddess, wearing the mask. And she's part of a parade and dance celebration where she blesses the community with her presence. There's a much more intense form of this rite, and this mask, which was carved around 1860, is an example of this. This is a rite from a rite called Kalinak. And in this particular rite, again, the priest is dressed as the Divine Mother. And when this mask is placed over his face, he is possessed by the Divine Mother. And he comes out running, waving a sword, slaying the demons of the community, and again, blessing the community with her presence. And he'll continue this dance for a while till he just basically falls from exhaustion. So the dark skin, as I mentioned before, is both the darkness of earth and the darkness of the infinity of space. Some other symbolism that we see associated with Ma Chamunda and Kali. We see the long tongue on this mask, for example. The tongue represents the vulva, so the female genitals, but also the flame of the cremation grounds. So this is associated with the Divine Mother's. The Divine Mother is the power that brings us into this world and then calls us home when our time has come. She's often shown with long disheveled hair. This represents the interconnectedness of all things. 3 eyes, we saw 3 eyes on each of these 3 bronze statues. This is awareness of waking consciousness, waking existence, and then realms beyond. I mentioned the skull necklace representing letters of the Sanskrit alphabet. She is sometimes also shown with a skirt of human arms. And when we give ourselves to the Divine Mother, our actions become her actions. Let's see, I mentioned the hand gestures. The owl that you sometimes see associated with Chamunda. So the owl, and sometimes she's clothed in a tiger skin as well. Both of the owl is a night hunter, the tiger, an ambush predator. These remind us that death and change come without warning. We see snakes sometimes associated with her. These represent both the rising of Kundalini and also the principle of rebirth. So Ma Chamunda, and really Kali in all of her forms, she really helps us. She's really a tantric goddess, and what I mean by that is she helps us in searching beyond our comfort zones and growing from that. And also Chamunda and her related forms like Parvati and Durga, they symbolize the importance of embracing the divine as one would embrace both a lover and a child. There's one more form I'm going to bring out. And this is essentially the Kali of Tibetan Buddhism. And she's called Vajra Yogini. And Vajra Yogini is also called Chamunda, and she's regarded as the female Buddha. And we see a lot of very similar symbolism as we have in the other images. And I'm going to go ahead and include her on our altar for tonight. So I'd like to close the satsang with a little story. A Western reporter and an Indian devotee of the goddess come across a statue of Kali. She has her forearms, the upper right hand raised in a blessing, the lower left offering a boon. The upper left holding a machete dripping with blood, and the lower left gripping a severed human head by the hair. Seeing this split, the Westerner immediately asks, so how do you get the blessing and avoid the machete? And the Eastern devotee replied, that's not it at all. The blessing is only one when you accept both sides of her, including pain, sorrow, decay, death, and destruction. Run from her horrors, and you run from her blessings. To deny death is to act as if your little self is the center of all things and must be protected from pain and preserved as long as possible. This is the real death. But embrace Kali as she is, kiss her bloody tongue, and feel all forearms caress you all at once. When you then you have life, and then you have freedom. So a little more information on Matrika, the Ashtamatrika Chamunda. She has a single syllable bij or seed mantra, which is Hom, pronounced like H-O-O-M. There's also the Navarna mantra, which I'm sure many of you have heard, Om Aim Reem Kleem Chamundaye Viche, very powerful mantra. Chamunda's Gayatri mantra is Om Krishna Varnaya Vidmae Shula Hastaya Dimahi Tano Kali Prachodayat. Let us meditate upon the goddess who is black. O goddess who holds a spear, give us higher intellect, and let goddess Kali, Chamunda, illuminate our minds. Chamunda is also known to slay a demon called Papa, and the demon Papa is our ability to commit sinful acts. And Chamunda's yantra, and this happens to be one that I have painted, and you'll also see this in more detail in the PowerPoint, but it's a downward facing triangle surrounded by a 6-pointed star, surrounded by an 8-pointed star made of 2 squares, and then 4 circles of lotus petals. The first one has 12, the next one has 14, the next one has 16, and the last one has 18. And this yantra will make our offerings to this evening. Ma Chamunda's boon for the Western mind would be to get beyond dualistic thinking. And the boon for the Eastern, and really the Western mind too, would be to allow this non-dualistic perspective to integrate into all spheres of life, not simply the spiritual one. And that's a quote from a wonderful online article I could recommend called Chamunda Devi, an Eastern Teacher to the West. And Chandra Alexander is the writer of that. So if you have other questions about Matrika Chamunda and any of her aspects, please feel free to email me via my YouTube channel. Also, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Looking at the screen, Deborah, namaste. Glad you could join me. And very glad for all of you that are here. So we're going to do the formal puja to Ma Chamunda from my upcoming book. And tonight's program is the video demo that the readers will be invited to watch. And so we originally intended this to be a fire puja, but instead I'll be offering rose petals. So in preparation, I invite everyone to make themselves comfortable, seated preferably with a straight spine, can be on the floor, could be in a chair. I invite you to take a few deep, clearing breaths. Just letting go of the cares of the day. So you can focus solely upon this rite and the meditation. And I invite you at this point to make a personal sankalpa, personal intention. Just think of some aspect of your life that's ready for growth or healing. Maybe some aspect that you're ready to shed away in order to help that growth. Maybe a need for guidance, or perhaps there's somebody close to you in need of those things. But just make that intention and acknowledge that in taking part in tonight's puja, you're taking a very powerful step in its resolution. And the resolution can be just as simple as realizing the Divine Mother's presence, not just without, but within. I invite you now to bring the palms of your hands together at your heart center. And we begin our practice by chanting Om 3 times. Inhale. So we ring the bell to formally begin the rite and to clear the atmosphere. And then we do our water cleansing. Om Pavitra Pavitrova Sarvavastam Gatopiva Yashmare Pandarikaksham Sabhyabhyanta Sushi. We honor Lord Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. Om Gam Ganapataye Namo Namah. We honor our teachers within and without, from past, present, or future. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namah. We honor Lord Shiva in all of his forms, Om Namah Shivaya. And we honor Ma Kali in all of her forms. Om Jayanti Mangalakali Bhadrakali Kapalini Durga Shama Shivadatri Svasvada Namostute Jayatvam Devi Chamunde Jaya Bhutitaharani Jaya Sarvagate Devi Kalaratri Namostute. And then in the formal puja, in my book, there is a dhyanam. This is a meditational visualization. So I'm going to chant it both in Sanskrit, but I'm also going to give the English translation. Om Chamundai Namah Vitricha Gatvan Gandhara Naramala Vibhusana Dvi Picharma Paridhana Shukamamasa Dibhairava Asti Vistara Vadana Shiva Lalana Bhishana Nimagna Arakta Nayana Nada Purita Dingmukha. Carrying a strange skull-topped staff, wearing a necklace of skulls, and dressed in a tiger skin, she with a shocking appearance due to her withered flesh, with a gaping mouth, a fearful lolling tongue, and having deep sunken eyes, filling the heavens with her roars, attacking and slaughtering the great armies of demons, and devouring the enemies of the divine. Jai Ma Chamunda Devi Nama. Victory to the Divine Mother Chamunda, to whom we bow. So our 5-element puja. Om Chamundai Namah Gandanam Samapayami Sri Chamundai Namah. So that's the offering of perfume oil, the earth element. Then food, which represents the water element. Naividyam samapayami Sri Chamundaye Namah. Jema. Then the element of fire, representing our actions and our ability to transform. Deepam samapayami Sri Chamundaye Namah. Incense for the air element. Our intellectual self. Dupam samapayami Sri Chamundaye Namah. And then flowers for the ether element, our spiritual selves, and think of the enflowering of our potentials. Pushpam samapayami Sri Chamundaye Namah. Jema. Puja samapayami Sri Chamundaye Namah. Jema. So in the book for this particular puja, there's an optional Namavali. And the Namavali is a recitation of the many names of the Divine Mother. And it's really a way of explaining her aspects. And so we're going to chant the 108 names of Ma Chamunda. This is a hymn or stotra called the Sri Chamundeshvari Asata Ashat Anamastotram. And so this is where I'm going to offer flower petals to our yantra. And I'm going to chant each stanza first in Sanskrit and then in English. Sri Chamunda Mamaya, Sri Matsima Saneshvari, Sri Vidya Vidya Maima, Sri Chakra Puravashini. Chamunda, great enchantress, queen of the great throne, knowledge, celebrated greatness, she who dwells within the Sri Chakra. Sri Kanta Dayata Gauri Grija Bhuvaneshwari Ma Kali Ma Lakshmi Mavani Manonmani. Lover, shining one, mountain, all-encompassing goddess, great, dark goddess of time, great goddess of wealth, granter of wishes, Sri Durga. Sasrasya Sasamyukte Sasraka Mandita Kachumba Vasanopta Ratnakanchukadarani. Quantity of 1,000 festivals, quantity of 1,000 sensual pleasures, princess of safflowers, bearer of jewels. Ganesha Skanda Janani Japa Kushama Basura Omakatyayane Durga Mantrani Dandani Jaya. Gladness of Ganesha, to whom earthly demons pray. Parvati Devi, Durga, regal one, goddess of mantras, staff goddess, victory. Kala Ningurinokat Pananyanda Sakrita Sachmara Vanishvedikshana Sevita. She who created from her fingernails the incarnations of Vishnu, she who is attended to by Lakshmi and Sarasvati. Indrakshi Baglabala Chakrishevi Jayambika Panchaparasanarudha Haran Kum Kumapriya. Beloved of Indra, skull force, goddess of the wheel, victorious mother, protector of the 5 elements, she who is worshipped with orange turmeric. Ma bala adrenalaya ma hisashura madani madhukatava samadani madhapunaika. Supreme might, preserver, slayer of the buffalo demons, slayer of Madhu and Kataba, 2 demons, destroyer of the universe, sweetness of the scriptures. Kameshvari Yoganidra Bhavani Chandika Sati Chakrajalusha Sita Sityantakarani. Pure Brahman, divine sleep, wife of Shiva, she who tears apart thoughts, daughter of Daksha, queen of yantras, controller of female elephants. Annapurna Shivala Shiva Kalaratri Svarupani Nishumba Shumba Madani Rakta Bija Nishudani. Bountiful Durga, flame goddess, night of time's destruction, slayer of Nisumba and Shumba, which means great ego and self-deprecation, slayer of Rakta Bija, seeds of desire. Ramya Dimatakarupa Shubhasat Chakra Devita Mula Prakyata Puraya Parvati Parameshvari. She who is in the form of holiness, auspicious constellation, great divine wheel, first cause of the universe, daughter of the Himalayas, supreme sovereign. Bindu Pitakutavasya Chandramandalamaiga Chtigandakasambhuta Vinjalichana Vindhyachala. To whom chaos is a jewel in her crown, she who dwells in the moon's disk, born in the fire pit of pure consciousness, dweller of the Vindhya mountains. Hayagriva Gastya Puja Surya Chandragna Lochana Jalandhara Sapithasta Shiva Dakshayanishvari. Durga related to Vishnu's fish incarnation, sun, invincible fire, she who maintains the chain of ocean life, bestower of all things auspicious, goddess of darkness. Navavarana Sambhuja Navaksara Manostuta Navavai Rupaja Jivaladvatrim Shudeoda. She who is praised in the holy city of Varanasi, she who is praised by the lunar race, she who is the focus of harvest sacrifices, instrument of the 30-day fire ceremony. Kamashabada Mangalya Chandraveka Vibhutita Characha Jagadrupa Nityaklina Parashita. Auspicious power of love, path of the shining moon, ruler of the living and non-living, she who is forever moist, ever compassionate victor. Oidyana Pithanlaya Lalita Vishnu's Odaridam Stakalavadana Vajrasnadi Vanivashani. Dweller in the sixth chakra, Sodashi, Lakshmi, she who cuts apart deceit, day of Saturn, bearer of oblations to the gods. Sava Mangala Rupaja Sachinanda Vigraha Stati Supadasta Barinda Baidavi Para. She who is in the form of auspiciousness, embodiment of the pleasure of existence, seat of suffering, formidable goddess, wife of Bhairava, transcended one. Rundamala Satkanda Bandasura Vimadini Pundrekshi Kundagodanda Pushpabanla Satkara. Prayer of a rosary of severed heads, instrument that destroys demons, bright field of sugarcane. Shivadutivada Mata Shankari Simavahana Chatasatya Pashadya Yovinigana Sevita. She for whom Shiva is her messenger, mother of the Vedas, giver of happiness, Sri Durga, she who is adored in 64 ceremonies, Yogini, she who is worshipped by the sun. Navadurga Bhadrakali Kadambavanavashini Chandamunda Syasatri Majini Sudamai. Splendid Durga, auspicious Kali, surrounded by a celestial grove, slayer of passion and anger, excellent stream, empress, total purity. Sri Chakra Varatatanka Sri Shila Brahma Ambika Sri Irjaj Varada Sri Matripura Sundari. Enclosure of the Sri Chakra, mother of Brahma, queen who grants wishes, divine goddess of the three worlds. Shakambari Shanti Datri Shatanandri Shivapriya Rakandavaranaya Ramya Ramaniya Varakrita. Sky Goddess, bringer of peace, beloved of Shiva, she with a delightful face, like the full moon, lovely one, grain mistress. Srimat Chamundika Davya Nam Namastotram Shatam Patam Bhachachayam Divim Sarvan Kamanava Punya. Jema. 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 So our mantra tonight, in honor of Ma Chamunda's aspect as one of the 7 Matrikas, 7 little mothers, we're going to use her single syllable Bij mantra, which is Hum. So our mantra is Om Hum Chamundaye Namah. And I invite you to chant it with me or to meditate quietly. Om Hum Chamundaye Namah. 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 To the resolution of our intentions, guidance, healing, protection, growth, wisdom for ourselves, for those closest to us, and for all of humanity. Jai Ma Chamundai. Jai Ma Chamundai. Jai Ma Chamundai. So closing prayers. Om Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shiva Svada Sadike Saranye Trambake Devi Naryane Namostute, which means one to the one who is the auspiciousness of all that is auspicious, the consort of Shiva, who is the means of accomplishing all desires, she who is the refuge of all, the three-eyed one, she who is the Divine Mother. Salutations to you, expander of consciousness. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om shanti shanti shanti. Happiness to all creatures. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sana Bhavatu, Sana Bhunaktu, Saviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vidvidyavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let all of us protect each other together. May all of us enjoy together. May we work together and let our study become radiant. Let there be no hatred between us. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Tat Sat Om, which means so let it be. The bell is rung to release our intentions into the universe. Jai Ganesha, Jai Guru, Om Namah Shivaya, Jai Ma Kali, Jai Mata Di, Jai Mata Di, Jai Mata Di, and Namaste. And thank you for being here this evening. So next Tuesday at 7:30, we'll have another Tuesday Satsang. Light yoga and meditation, probably another meditation from the book. And then next Friday at 7 o'clock, we're into a new month, so we'll be doing a Kriya Yoga practice. Again, if you have any questions, please email me at my channel. And thank you so much for being here. Namaste, Jai Mata Di, and blessings always.